Every music producer should know how to engineer. Let me explain. If you've been on producer YouTube for more than 5 minutes, you've probably heard people complain about being a producer and selling type beats being oversaturated. And to an extent, they're right. This niche is saturated with producers who only want to sell type beats and don't want to go the extra mile for the artist. Right now, making beats is easier and more accessible than it's ever been before. In a market this crowded with millions of producers fighting for the same opportunities, if you want to pursue this as a career, we need to find ways that we can stand out and diversify our income. And one of the best ways to do that is to learn how to engineer. Most people who've come across my YouTube and my social media probably know me as a producer, but when I first started pursuing music as a career, I was actually getting more work as an engineer than I was as a producer. Back when I was in high school, I started working with some of my classmates. I was primarily interested at making beats at the time, but they needed a studio to record at. And if I'm being completely honest, at that time, my beats weren't on par with anything that you could find on YouTube, but my recording and mixing were good enough for us to start getting some traction. So even though I mainly wanted to produce and make beats, it was actually more necessary for me to focus on learning how to engineer. I learned how to set up a microphone, how to get good recordings with the equipment and space we had at the time, and focusing on recording gave me a ton of material to practice mixing and mastering with. But most importantly, I learned how to speak to artists, how to make them feel comfortable, and how to communicate with them to get the sound that they're looking for. There are millions of tutorials on YouTube that will teach you how to EQ and compress a vocal, but the only way you can learn how to interact with artists and how to control a studio session is by actually doing that in person. At that time, I mainly wanted to offer my production skills, but my particular market at the time needed me more as a recording and mixing engineer, and it ended up working out for me better than I had anticipated. I was in college full-time, I had a part-time job, and then I was working on music whenever I had free time. I wasn't making a ton of money back then, but one of my first financial accomplishments was being able to use the money I was making from recording artists to buy my college textbooks for a semester. Eventually, my production skills got to a level where I was getting more projects to produce on, but engineering got me in the door. And to this day, most of the income that I make from music is split between production projects and mixing projects. Some of the biggest takeaways of this story is the importance of skill stacking and paying attention to market demands. I wasn't the best producer or engineer in town, but there was a need for someone reliable who has a relatively quick turnaround time who's able to record, mix, and master music for artists. To be honest, most of the artists I was recording at the time weren't paying for beats, but they saw value in me as an engineer, and most of them didn't have a problem with paying my fee. And that's not to say that artists don't buy beats, but they will pay for something they find value in. And that's important to know. And I'm aware this isn't a one-size-fits-all solution. Even though I live in a small town, there happens to be a good amount of artists where I live, and I know that's not the case everywhere. But I also didn't know how many creatives were around me until I put myself out there. You don't need to live in LA or Atlanta to find musicians that are passionate about their work and are willing to pay someone to help them carry out their vision. Part of your job as a producer is being an entrepreneur. You need to pay attention to what's needed in the marketplace. Initially, with the first set of artists I was working with, they were happy with the beats they were using. They didn't necessarily need beats from me, but they did need someone to record, mix, and master their music. Not only did I decide to fill that need, but I also did what I could to go above and beyond when it came to making the artists feel comfortable and sending their mixes back in a timely manner. I could have been stubborn and not make an effort to learn the skill, but then I would have missed out on income, long-term relationships, and opportunities to get production gigs later down the line. One other big advantage of knowing how to engineer is that if you're already good at making an artist feel comfortable recording with you, it makes it a lot easier to pitch your beats to them. There are so many factors you can't control when you only rely on emailing artists beats or just sending them to your BeatStars page. Even if you have beats you know they would use, you don't know when or if they're going to check their email, and you don't know what mood they're in that day. But if you're with them in the studio, they're already in the mood to write and record, and you can play beats based on the mood that they're in real time. This is something I didn't take advantage of while I was focusing on engineering, and I really wish that I did. I mainly didn't because I was worried about overstepping boundaries, but I was asked to play some of my beats here and there, and even if they didn't use them, I got good feedback a lot of the time. Even if artists don't use your beats the moment you pitch them, you'll get feedback in real time, and it's possible they may come to you for beats later on. And if they do, this gives you an opportunity to get paid for engineering their music, and then you can charge for the beat on top of that, which they were going to spend either way if they used someone else's beat. Artists are going to spend money on production and engineering either way, but more of that money could be going into your pockets. It's no secret that it's tough to stand out as a producer. Even if you're not particularly interested in engineering, you should consider finding other ways to add value to artists in addition to your beats. You might not be able to record or mix, but maybe you know an engineer and you're able to get artists connected with them. Now you and that engineer can share clientele, help build each other's portfolio, and make more money. Maybe you know enough about marketing to point an artist in the right direction and can help them come up with a marketing plan to help promote their music. Artists ask me all the time how they can start promoting their music or what type of content they should be making. I don't consider myself an expert at marketing, but I know enough to get someone started, and this is a way I build relationships with artists that I want to work with, and it's it's a good way to gain their trust. The point is, if you want to compete with millions of producers who are all trying to sell beats, you need to find a way to stand out from them. A lot of producers only want to sell type beats, but they don't want to build relationships with artists. Most don't want to go the extra mile. Even simply responding to DMs in a timely manner will set you apart from most producers you see online. One of the ways I was initially able to stand out and start building my clientele was learning how to engineer. It may not have been what I initially wanted to do, but I ended up liking it almost as much as I like producing. To this day, sometimes I come across artists who are happy with the beats they have, but they need someone to mix and master their music. Sometimes they actually need both, and they hire me to produce, mix, and master their music from start to finish. Being able to skill stack may not be the thing that makes or breaks your career, but it can open up multiple opportunities for you to generate income. If you take nothing else away from this video, if you want to maximize your opportunities as a music producer, I highly encourage you to pay attention to the market, see what demands need to be met, and do what you can to go above and beyond for the artist you're working with. Thank you for watching this video. If you got any value out of it, please give it a like, a comment, and subscribe for more. And if you're a music producer who's interested in learning how you can raise your rates and charge more for your beats, click this video.